It's amazing how, in the wild era of the 80s and 90s, the boundaries were being pushed regarding what was acceptable to be featured in anime and manga. We have received some of the goriest, blood-fueled, and sexually explicit series and movies in all of anime history from that period. Surprisingly, many of these works remain uncensored to this day, while subsequent movies and series have come under much scrutiny and censorship since. We'd like to put out a quick disclaimer stating that some of these animes might not be banned or censored currently, but in any case, thanks to the internet, you should be able to find all of the anime featured in their uncensored and uncut versions if you look hard enough. However, we strongly advise you to exercise your discretion if you decide to do so. In today's marvelous anime video, we intend to shed some light on these animes that were either banned or heavily censored for pushing things too far. For that purpose, we've selected 8 animes spanning across various eras and genres. What all of these anime have in common is the fact that at some point, someone or a group of people decided that these shows had taken things a bit too far. Now, what's considered pushing things too far can be subjective and can vary from individual to individual, but we feel that you'll agree with our choice of the animes that have made it to our list today. From excessive nudity to graphic scenes of abuse and even suicide, these animes are rife with disturbing imagery and themes. Join us as we take you through what exactly made these animes receive their censorships and bans so that you can decide for yourself whether it was justified or not. Now, without further ado, strap on in and get your pitchforks out as we bring you the top 8 animes that have been censored for pushing things too far. Let us begin. Kite, one of the most controversial anime to have ever come out, this 1998 two-part OVA directed by Yasuomi Umetsu really pushed the boundaries on what was considered acceptable in an animated film or series. Initially released as an original video animation, it was combined and subsequently released as a movie in North America and Europe. Kite tells the story of a young high school girl named Sawa who is trained to be an assassin after the brutal and mysterious murder of her parents. Sawa is taken in by 2 individuals named Akai and Connie who are investigating her parents' murder. Together, they set her loose on a number of high-value targets like corrupt cops and heads of companies for their personal gain. As if the fact that a young girl who had just lost her parents had become a hired gun instead of healing from her trauma wasn't enough, we find out that she also has a sexual relationship with Akai. The older man had not only been training her to be a killer, but also grooming her despite being her guardian, who's meant to keep her safe by the very definition of that word. As Sawa gets sucked deeper and deeper into the abyss, a much larger conspiracy begins to unfold. The movie paints a disturbing image of lost innocence and a hopeless world that's sure to leave a mark on the audience's conscience. Just when you think that Kite had thrown at you all that it had, the film showcases a graphic rape scene involving a minor. If the violence and the pedophilic sexual relationship weren't enough to raise controversy for the film, the sexual assault scene most certainly caused massive repulsion amongst those who had seen the film, along with people in positions of power in the real world. Norway, which has very strong laws against child sexual assault material, or CSAM, immediately banned the film from being screened or distributed within its territory. The film was cited as having perverse, child pornographic, and assault material that violated the Norwegian CSAM laws. Many countries in the European Union soon followed suit, banning the film on similar grounds. Despite the outrage, the anime was adapted into a live-action film featuring Samuel L. Jackson in 2014. The live-action adaptation garnered next to no attention, unlike its anime counterpart. Another fun trivia about this movie is the fact that Quentin Tarantino suggested Japanese actress Chiaki Kurayama use Kite in preparation for her role as the psycho assassin Gogo Yubari in his film Kill Bill. Due to the heavy-handed nature of this ban, you can usually only find the censored version of the movie. However, the uncut version can be found floating around on the internet if you look hard enough. Cowboy Bebop. When one thinks of censored or banned anime, it's natural for the mind to drift towards animes that are well known for brutal and gruesome content, like the ones found in shows such as MD Geist or Devilman. Few would think of Cowboy Bebop as an example, but what if we were to tell you that this is the case only because the anime was already heavily censored prior to its release, which gave viewers the impression that it was a lot more PG? Cowboy Bebop is a critically acclaimed TV series directed by Japanese director Shinichiro Watanabe, which follows the story of a bunch of misfits who have formed a bounty hunting crew. Each of these characters has skeletons in their closet, but has found friendship and camaraderie amongst each other as they go through one adventure after another until their past catches up with them. According to the creator of the show, the series pioneered what he called the neo-noir space western anime due to its incorporation of all the genres mentioned. It would go on to capture the hearts of fans across the globe with its quirky humor, stellar soundtrack, and beautifully crafted story. What most fans don't know is the fact that due to it being scheduled to air in a time slot reserved for children children's anime in Japan, the series caused an uproar amongst parents in the country. While not the most goriest or perverse anime out there, Cowboy Bebop is also not by any means a children's anime. This also followed fresh on the heels of the complete fiasco involving Evangelion's airing, which had also caused parents to launch several complaints regarding the show's content. As such, TV Tokyo, the original broadcaster of the series, pulled the plug on it after airing just 14 of the intended 26 episodes. In fact, the series wasn't available on Japanese television until the satellite television station WoW picked up the series and aired all of the intended episodes. The show would also not escape censorship on Western shores, as Adult Swim, the original broadcaster of the show in North America, was forced to remove a significant amount of blood and foul language from the series. They were also forced to completely remove 3 episodes of the original rotation following the terrorist attacks on the World Trade Center on September 11, 2001. All of these episodes contained some form of fighting involving hijacks, terrorists, and conflicts in tall skyscrapers. They were considered to be too sensitive and triggering due to the recency of the attacks in real life. More significantly, a 4th episode titled Wild Horses would also be banned temporarily, but not for anything related to the 9/11 terrorist attacks. On February 1st, 2003, the Space Shuttle Columbia had a disastrous re-entry into Earth's atmosphere, resulting in casualties. The Shuttle Columbia appears in the aforementioned episodes, and the people behind the series felt that it would have been in poor taste to leave it on the air. In this way, the iconic series has also managed to find itself under heavy scrutiny and censorship, although the entire anime wasn't ever completely banned. Outlaw Star. Moving from one sci-fi series to the next, Outlaw Star has been described as a space opera by its creators. It follows the journey of Gene Starwind, a young man whose dream is to one day pilot his own starship. Unfortunately for him, this dream of his looks far from becoming a reality as he works odd jobs on a backwater planet called Sentinel-3. That is, until one day when he is mysteriously approached by a treasure-hunting outlaw called Rachel Sweets to take on a job that entails protecting a mysterious girl called Melfina. One thing leads to another, and Gene and his friends find themselves aboard a highly advanced spaceship called Outlaw Star. Now, the ragtag group must navigate the final frontier as they try and discover the mystery behind Melfina and their starship while fighting off all manners of foes, including space bandits, bounty hunters, Taoist monks, and even catgirls. While this sounds like the plot of any average seinen manga, folks in North America, and in particular Cartoon Network, certainly didn't think so. The anime does contain a fair bit of nudity, foul language, violence, and adult-oriented content. This series was aired during the evening section of Toonami's broadcast and was heavily censored to the point that it was almost unrecognizable from the original in many respects. Profanity was completely removed, while scenes containing violence or lewdness were either toned down or cut from episodes. There were also many nude scenes where clothes were digitally inserted to make them appropriate for Toonami's audience, which most likely consisted of a bunch of 7-year-olds. In fact, the entire 23rd episode, where the crew visits a hot spring planet, was completely cancelled and not aired on the channel due to nudity and sexually suggestive themes. One of the more controversial censorships in this anime was regarding a gay character called Fred Luo. Upon being asked to comment on this, the folks at Cartoon Network suggested that Luo's role in the anime was toned down not because of his sexuality, but because of the company's overall attitude towards overt sexuality or implied sexuality of any kind. Well, in the UK, the series did air mostly uncensored. The Hot Spring Planet episode did have digitally inserted bikinis for all of the nude characters in it. Cartoon Network's stance on the matter is understandable, as its target audience was mainly children, but I mean, then why did you even attempt to air such anime in the first place? Regardless, Outlaw Stars has rightfully earned its place on this list and in our video today. Tokyo Ghoul. Although Tokyo Ghoul isn't exactly a family-friendly anime, it doesn't even come close to being as gross or perverse as some of the animes out there. However, quite clearly, not everyone seems to share this view, as it found itself in hot waters in certain parts of the world. The popular anime based on Sui Ishida's eponymous manga was an instant hit amongst fans for its cool character design, morbid themes, and a catchy opening soundtrack. It follows the tale of a timid young man named Kaneki Ken who suddenly finds himself at a crossroads where he has to decide to either give in to the ghoul within or retain his humanity. Ghouls in this world are like apex predators similar to the Yoma from another anime called Claymore, for those who are familiar with it. They have special abilities but look very similar to humans, allowing them to blend into the very society that they feed on. After an unfortunate encounter with a very powerful ghoul leaves him with the creature's body parts transplanted into him, Kaneki realizes that he's no longer just human. As his humanity begins to slip away and a whole new hidden world of ghouls and humans opens up before him, Kaneki must choose his allies carefully lest his hunger devours his own humanity. The anime does tone down the graphic violence a lot, but it also has themes of cannibalism and torture just built right in. China's Ministry of Culture did seem to think that it had gone too far, as it had the anime banned, citing that it was unfit for consumption by the masses, especially young people. Meanwhile, in Russia, the series was made unavailable by Sony, who distributes the anime through Crunchyroll due to the Ukraine invasion. However, even before that, a St. Petersburg court had declared the anime filled with too much violence, cruelty, and murder. They said that the violence was likely to corrupt and influence their youth into committing similar acts. The animes on this list, just like this one, are a perfect example of the subjective nature of what people might consider to be too extreme. In this case, unfortunately, Tokyo Ghoul was the one to come under the ban hammer of the CCP and the Kremlin. Puni Poemi. Moving on from the cannibalistic world of Tokyo Ghoul to something that's a bit more lighthearted in terms of its theme, but not its content, Puni Poemi is a spin-off series featuring the side characters of the Excel Saga anime. It's an unhinged, over-the-top parody of the Mahou Shoujo or magical girl genre, which is infamous for its cliched tropes. What started as a joke amongst the team behind Excel Saga was suddenly made into a reality by the eccentric director of the original series, Shinichi Watanabe. Puni Poemi follows the life of a young girl called Poemi Watanabe who dreams of one day becoming a famous voiceover artist. However, Poemi, who is a terrible student, also unfortunately happens to have zero talent when it comes to her passion as well. However, what she lacks in ability, she more than makes up for with her supercharged, energetic personality. Just as the anime seems to be taking a pretty chilled-out comedic route, we are suddenly hit with some seriously dark stuff. One day, as Poemi makes her way home, she finds that it has been completely ravaged along with most of Tokyo. Not only does she lose her home, but we find out that her parents had been killed by an alien. This leads to Poemi Watanabe grabbing a fish and skinning it alive to turn it into a wand, following which she transforms into the powerful Mahou Shoujo, Puni Poemi. The humor employed in Puni Poemi is not for everyone, to put it mildly. It can be excessively crude and burlesque in nature, featuring sexual innuendos to elicit a laugh. What makes it problematic, however, is not the crass jokes, but the amount of nudity it features involving its 10-year-old protagonist. To say that this literally sets off alarm bells all over the place isn't an exaggeration. This has led to the two-part OVA series being heavily censored and banned in numerous countries for the depiction of minors in a sexual light. For instance, New Zealand's classification board banned it in their country, stating that the anime supported the exploitation of children and young people for sexual purposes. It was banned outright in New Zealand and many other countries for its wanton depiction of minors in a sexual manner. It wasn't until 2021 that the board would unban the series after heavily editing and censoring it by giving it an R16 rating. While Puni Poemi might have just been a bit of deranged, harmless satire, barring its handling of content regarding manners, this can't be said for every other anime in the video, as you'll see next. Midori, the Girl in the Freak Show. Midori, the Girl in the Freak Show has to be the single most hated and reviled anime to have ever come out to date. It's the animated adaptation of Suhiro Maruo's equally controversial manga, Shoujo Tsubaki. This anime film is considered to sit at the pinnacle of the ero-girl genre that focuses massively on sexual corruption and decadence, all of which are shown in the most grotesque manner. There are no redeeming qualities to this film, directed by Hiroshi Harada, which has led to its being banned in almost every single country in the world. The story revolves around the life of a young high school girl named Midori who lives alone with her terminally ill mother after they are both abandoned by her father. After the death of her mother, Midori, with no one to turn to, takes the help offered to her by the owner of the Red Cat Circus, which is actually a troupe filled with disfigured and abnormal human beings. What follows is Midori sinking into a quagmire of misery as she gets sexually abused by the freaks of the circus. With no help left, she becomes the circus magician's plaything in order to protect herself from the rest of the troupe. However, this individual, who is considerably older than her, also goes on to exploit her in the same manner. While all of this is happening, you might think that Midori is somewhat of a sympathetic character, but this could not be further from the truth. As her mind gets warped by her environment and trauma, the protagonist frequently swaps her status between the abused and the abuser. There is one particularly disturbing scene where she's seen abusing animals in the most gruesome manner. This act turned out to be the final straw for most audiences who watched the movie during its release, as it led to massive outrage. Copies of the film were torched and whatever remained was completely banned from circulation. The film is a grim commentary on the darker side of the human psyche and is a storm of deranged and perverse imagery. Shoujo Tsubaki is not meant to have a redemption arc, as the whole point of the film seems to be to display human depravity in all of its unabashed and inglorious forms. Nowadays, you can find the Midori, the Girl in the Freak Show's uncut version floating about the internet, although we strongly advise viewer discretion if you intend to seek it out. The more easily accessible versions of the film are heavily censored and edited, and even then, we still recommend that you proceed with caution before viewing it. This is a movie that you cannot unwatch. Kodomo no Jikan / Nymphette. Kodomo no Jikan, or Nymphette as it's known in North America, is an anime that features some serious lolicon content that makes it very hard to defend. Based on the manga written by Japanese mangaka Kaworu Wadashiya, it's a story that has a lot of sexual imagery featuring minors. The plot revolves around Daisuke Aoi, a grade school teacher who is carefree and enthusiastic and finds himself in constant jeopardy thanks to a female student of his called Rin, who has a massive crush on him. While any media that depicts teachers in compromising situations with their students is something that's naturally frowned upon or admonished, what makes matters worse is that the girl in question is barely 10 years old. While initially, Daisuke, along with the audience, believes it to be the mere infatuation of an immature child, Rin starts making aggressive sexual advances on her teacher, which results in some fairly graphic and uncomfortably sexually suggestive scenes. It's therefore not at all surprising when the anime adaptation of the series, directed by Eiji Suganuma and produced by Studio Barcelona, immediately faced censorship in its own home country and abroad. In Japan, two mainstream television stations, namely TV Saitama and MeTV, completely removed it from their broadcasting schedules, while others, like Chiba TV and KBS Kyoto, aired a watered-down and censored version of the show. It was later revealed that the two stations that had banned the show had their decisions heavily influenced by the fact that the Japanese police had recently apprehended the notorious pedophile and child pornography director Takayuki Hosoda, who was an elementary school vice principal. With the similarity in the setting of the story, with Daisuke being a school teacher, it was deemed that the series hit far too close to reality at the time. Overseas, things didn't fare too well for the series either, with the Los Angeles-based company Seven Seas Entertainment, which held the license for the series' distribution in North America, deciding to remove the series and the manga from circulation. The CEO of the company claimed that the later parts of the series were in no way, shape, or form fit for consumption by the American audience. Fearing massive backlash, they decided to cut their losses. Kodomo no Jikan has been criticized by many as a poorly veiled child pornography by many critics and fans alike. The disconnect between the author and the world really came across when Kaworu Wadashiya attributed the failure of the series abroad to cultural differences. It's surprising to hear them say this, as the film was heavily censored and even banned in their own home country, as mentioned earlier. Kodomo no Jikan is one of the most uncomfortable animes to sit through, and it really pushed the limits of what is considered permissible in anime or any media. Paranoia Agent. To round off this list, we have the deeply unsettling psychological thriller Paranoia Agent, which is the brainchild of Satoshi Kon, the director of acclaimed series like JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Paprika, and Perfect Blue. The anime's plot revolves around the stories of the detectives and the victims of a serial assailant called the Little Slugger, who is supposedly a young child who goes around on his inline skates assaulting random strangers with a bat. The anime was considered too intense and dark for audiences in both Japan and North America initially during its release, causing it to be censored in a heavy-handed nature. It has a large amount of nudity, profanity, and violence, which made it completely unsuitable for younger audiences, though even for adults it was a hard watch. One scene in particular features a graphic suicide scene with a child hanging herself, and it was rightfully considered too disturbing to be aired on television. The only way to view the series in Japan at the time was through WoW, which, as we mentioned earlier, was a satellite television station. In North America, the series was only available via DVD until 2004, as it was completely banned in the region. The following year would see the anime finally getting aired in the late-night section of Adult Swim, but would naturally be heavily censored. The series was heavily watered down, with any references to suicide once again being completely removed, along with nudity and swearing that the original was rife with. Adult Swim would once again air the series in 2020 with much less censorship, choosing to blur the nude body parts instead of cutting out the scenes entirely. The suicide scene was also kept intact, although it was shown alongside numerous advertisements for suicide prevention both before and after. Many consider the series to be on par with Kon's other seminal works in the genre, such as Paprika and Perfect Blue. The complete, unedited, and uncensored version is now available for viewing on Crunchyroll. Marvelous Verdict. Censorship has often been misused by those in authority to suppress information from the masses, but in regard to many of the anime featured today, it's hard not to argue against its usefulness. Whether you find the reasons behind their censorship justifiable or not, these animes have pushed the boundaries in various ways. We also have to take these censorships and bans with a pinch of salt, as what one finds offensive or distasteful is very subjective, as we mentioned earlier. While shows like Shoujo Tsubaki and Kite find themselves rightfully under the ban hammer, others like Tokyo Ghoul and Cowboy Bebop have a case to be made for them. We'd love to hear from you though. If there are any animes that come to your mind that fit the bill for this video, let us know down in the comments. Also, do tell us if you've watched any of these animes in their uncensored form. As always, we thank you for sticking with us right to the end of this video. If you enjoyed the content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. For our newer viewers, we cover all your favorite animes and characters on our channel, so be sure to check that out after you're done here. For now though, it's time to say goodbye. So, until next time, stay safe and stay marvelous.